The Seasons by James Thompson. Book 4, Winter, Part 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Abe Neiman. See, winter comes to rule the varied year, Sullen and sad with all his rising train. Vapors and clouds and storms be the seamy theme, these, that exalt the soul to solemn thought and heavenly musing. Welcome, kindred glooms! Congenial horrors, hail! With frequent foot pleased have I, in my cheerful morn of life, When nursed by careless solitude I lived, And sung of nature with unceasing joy, Pleased have I wandered through your rough domain, Trod the pure virgin snows, myself as pure, Heard the winds roar, and the big torrent burst, Or seen the deep fermenting tempest brood In the grim evening sky. Thus passed the time, till thro' the lucid chambers of the south Looked out the joyous spring, looked out and smiled. To thee, the patron of her first essay, The Muse, O Wilmington, renews her song. Since has she rounded the revolving year, Skimm'd the gay spring, on eagle pinions borne Attempted thro' the summer blaze to rise, Then swept o'er autumn with the shadowy gale, And now among the wintry clouds again, Roll'd in the doubling storm, she tries to soar, To swell her note with all the rushing winds, To suit her sounding cadence to the floods. As is her theme, her numbers wildly great. Thrice happy, could she fill thy judging ear With bold description, and with manly thought. Nor art thou skill'd in awful schemes alone, And how to make a mighty people thrive ; But equal goodness, sound integrity, A firm, unshaken, uncorrupted soul, Amid a sliding age, and burning strong. Not vainly blazing for the country's weal. A steady spirit, regularly free. These, each exalting each, the statesman light Into the patriot. These the public hope, and I, to thee converting. Bid the Muse record what envy dares not flattery call. Now when the cheerless empire of the sky To Capricorn the Centaur Archer yields. And fierce Aquarius stains th' inverted year. Hung o'er the farthest verge of heaven, the sun Scarce spreads thro' ether the dejected day. Faint are his gleams, and ineffectual shoot His struggling rays in horizontal lines Thro' the thick air ; as cloth'd in cloudy storm. Weak, wan, and broad, he skirts the southern sky. And soon descending, to the long dark night Wide shading all, the prostrate world resigns. Nor is the night unwish'd, while vital heat. Light, life, and joy, the dubious day forsake. Meantime, in sable cincture, shadows vast. Deep tinged and damp, and congregated clouds. And all the vapoury turbulence of heaven, Involve the face of things. Thus winter falls, a heavy gloom oppressive o'er the world. Thro' nature shedding influence malign, And rouses up the seeds of dark disease. The soul of man dies in him, loathing life. And black with more than melancholy views. The cattle droop, and o'er the furrowed land. Fresh from the plough, the dun discolour'd flocks, Untended, spreading, crop the wholesome root. Along the woods, along the moorish fens. Sighs the sad genius of the coming storm. And up among the loose disjointed cliffs. And fractur'd mountains wild, the brawling brook And cave presageful send a hollow moan. Resounding long in listening fancy's ear. Then comes the father of the tempest forth, Wrapt in black glooms. First joyless rains obscure drive thro' the mingling skies. With vapour foul dash on the mountain's brow. And shake the woods that grumbling wave below. The unsightly plain lies a brown deluge, as the low-bent clouds pour flood on flood, yet unexhausted still combine, and deepening into night, shut up the day's fair face. The wanderers of heaven each to his home retire, save those that love to take their pastime in the troubled air, or skimming flutter round the dimply pool. The cattle from the untasted fields return, and ask with meaning low their wonted stalls, or ruminate in the contiguous shade. Thither the household feathery people crowd, the crested cock with all his female train, pensive and dripping, while the cottage hind hangs o'er the enlivening blaze, and taleful there recounts his simple frolic. Much he talks, and much he laughs, nor recks the storm that blows without, and rattles on his humble roof. Wide o'er the brim with many a torrent swelled, and the mixed ruin of its banks o'erspread, at last the roused up river pours along, resistless, roaring, dreadful, down it comes from the rude mountain and the mossy wild, tumbling through rocks abrupt and sounding far. Then o'er the sanded valley floating spreads, calm, sluggish, silent, till again, constrained between two meeting hills, it bursts away, where rocks and woods o'erhang the turbid stream. There gathering triple force, rapid and deep, it boils and wheels and foams and thunders through. Nature, great parent, whose unceasing hand rolls round the seasons of the changeful year, how mighty, how majestic are thy works! With what a pleasing dread they swell the soul, that sees astonished, and astonished sings. Ye too, ye winds that now begin to blow, with boisterous sweep I raise my voice to you. Where are your stores, ye powerful beings? Say, where are your aerial magazines reserved to swell the brooding terrors of the storm? In what far distant region of the sky, hushed in deep silence, sleep ye when 'tis calm? When from the pallid sky the sun descends, with many a spot, that o'er his glaring orb uncertain wanders, stained, red fiery streaks begin to flush around. The reeling clouds stagger with dizzy poise, as doubting yet which master to obey ; while rising slow, blank, in the leaden colour'd east, the moon wears a wan circle round her blunted horns. Seen through the turbid, fluctuating air, the stars obtuse emit a shivered ray, or frequent seem to shoot athwart the gloom, and long behind them trail the whitening blaze. Snatched in short eddies plays the withered leaf, and on the flood the dancing feather floats. With broadened nostrils to the sky upturned, the conscious heifer snuffs the stormy gale. Even as the matron, at her nightly task, with pensive labour draws the flaxen thread, the wasted taper and the crackling flame foretell the blast. But chief the plumy race, the tenants of the sky, its changes speak. Retiring from the downs, where all day long they picked their scanty fare, a blackening train of clamorous rooks thick urge their weary flight, and seek the closing shelter of the grove. Assiduous in his bower the wailing owl plies his sad song. The cormorant on high wheels from the deep, and screams along the land. Loud shrieks the soaring hern, and with wild wing the circling sea fowl cleave the flaky clouds. Ocean unequal pressed with broken tide and blind commotion heaves, while from the shore, eat into caverns by the restless wave and forest rustling mountain, comes a voice that solemn sounding bids the world prepare. Then issues forth the storm with sudden burst, and hurls the whole precipitated air down in a torrent. On the passive main descends the ethereal force, and with strong gusts turns from its bottom the discolour'd deep. Through the black night that sits immense around, lash'd into foam, the fierce conflicting brine Seems o'er 1,000 raging waves to burn. Meantime the mountain billows to the clouds In dreadful tumult swell'd, surge above surge, Burst into chaos with tremendous roar. And anchor'd navies from their stations drive, Wild as the winds across the howling waste Of mighty waters. Now the inflated wave straining they scale, and now impetuous shoot Into the secret chambers of the deep, The wintry Baltic thundering o'er their head. Emerging thence again before the breath Of full exerted heaven, they wing their course, And dart on distant coasts, if some sharp rock, Or shoal insidious, break not their career, And in loose fragments fling them floating round. Nor less at land the loosened tempest reigns. The mountain thunders, and its sturdy sons Stoop to the bottom of the rocks they shade. Lone on the midnight steep, and all aghast, The dark wayfaring stranger breathless toils. And, often falling, climbs against the blast. Low waves the rooted forest, vexed, and sheds What of its tarnished honours yet remain. Dash'd down, and scattered by the tearing wind's assiduous fury, its gigantic limbs. Thus struggling through the dissipated grove, The whirling tempest raves along the plain. And on the cottage thatched or lordly roof, Keen fastening, shakes them to the solid base. Sleep frighted flies, and round the rocking dome, For entrance eager, howls the savage blast. Then too, they say, thro' all the burdened air, Long groans are heard, shrill sounds, and distant sighs. That, uttered by demon of the night, warn The devoted wretch of woe and death. Huge uproar lords it wide. The clouds, commix'd with stars swift gliding, Sweep along the sky. All nature reels, till nature's king, Who oft amid tempestuous darkness dwells Alone, and on the wings of the careering wind Walks dreadfully serene, commands a calm. Then straight air, sea, and earth are hush'd at once. As yet 'tis midnight deep. The weary clouds, slow meeting, mingle into solid gloom. Now, while the drowsy world lies lost in sleep, Let me associate with the serious night, And contemplate her sedate compeer. Let me shake off the intrusive cares of day, And lay the meddling senses all aside. Where now, ye lying vanities of life, Ye ever tempting, ever cheating train? Where are you now, and what is your amount? Vexation, disappointment, and remorse. Sad, sickening thought! And yet deluded man, a scene Of crude disjointed visions past, And broken slumbers, rises still resolved With new flush'd hopes to run the giddy round. Father of light and life, thou good supreme, O teach me what is good, teach me thyself. Save me from folly, vanity, and vice, From every low pursuit, and feed my soul With knowledge, conscious peace, and virtue pure. Sacred, substantial, never fading bliss. The keener tempests rise, and fuming dun From all the livid east, or piercing north, Thick clouds ascend, in whose capacious womb A vapory deluge lies, to snow congeal'd. Heavy they roll their fleecy world along, And the sky saddens with the gather'd storm. Thro' the hush'd air the whitening shower descends, At first thin wavering, till at last the flakes Fall broad and wide, and fast dimming the day With a continual flow. The cherish'd fields put on their winter robe Of purest white. 'Tis brightness all, save where the new snow Melts along the mazy current. Low the woods bow their o'erhead, and ere the languid sun Faint from the west emits his evening ray, Earth's universal face, deep hid and chill, Is one wild dazzling waste, that buries wide The works of man. Drooping, the laborer ox stands covered o'er with snow, and then demands the fruit of all his toil. The fowls of heaven, tamed by the cruel season, crowd around the winnowing store, and claim the little boon which Providence assigns them. One alone, the redbreast, sacred to the household gods, wisely regardful of the embroiling sky, in joyless fields and thorny thickets leaves his shivering mates, and pays to trusted man his annual visit. Half afraid, he first against the window beats, then brisk alights on the warm hearth, then, hopping o'er the floor, eyes all the smiling family askance, and pecks and starts and wonders where he is, till more familiar grown, the table crumbs attract his slender feet. The foodless wilds pour forth their brown inhabitants. The hare, though timorous of heart, and hard beset by death in various forms, dark snares and dogs, and more unpitying men, the garden seeks, urged on by fearless want. The bleeding kind eye the bleak heaven, and next the glistening earth, with looks of dumb despair. Then sad dispersed, dig for the withered herb through heaps of snow. Now, shepherds, to your helpless charge be kind. Baffle the raging year, and fill their pens with food at will. Lodge them below the storm, and watch them strict. For from the bellowing east in this dire season, oft the whirlwind's wing sweeps up the burden of whole wintry plains at one wide waft, and o'er the hapless flocks, hid in the hollow of two neighboring hills, the billowy tempest whelms, till upward surged, the valley to a shining mountain swells, tipped with a wreath high curling in the sky. As thus the snows arise, and foul and fierce all winter drives along the darkened air, in his own loose revolving fields the swain disastered stands, sees other hills ascend of unknown joyless brow, and other scenes of horrid prospect shag the trackless plain. Nor finds the river, nor the forest hid beneath the formless wild, but wanders on from hill to dale, still more and more astray, impatient flouncing through the drifted heaps, stung with the thoughts of home. The thoughts of home rush on his nerves, and call their vigor forth in many a vain attempt. How sinks his soul! What black despair, what horror fills his heart, when for the dusky spot, which fancy feigned his tufted cottage rising through the snow, he meets the roughness of the middle waste, far from the track and blest abode of man, while round him night resistless closes fast, and every tempest howling o'er his head renders the savage wilderness more wild. Then throng the busy shapes into his mind, of covered pits unfathomably deep, a dire descent, beyond the power of frost, of faithless bogs, of precipices huge, smoothed up with snow, and what is land, unknown, what water of the still unfrozen spring, in the loose marsh or solitary lake, where the fresh fountain from the bottom boils. These check his fearful steps, and down he sinks beneath the shelter of the shapeless drift, thinking o'er all the bitterness of death, mixed with the tender anguish nature shoots through the wrung bosom of the dying man, his wife, his children, and his friends unseen. In vain for him the officious wife prepares the fire fair blazing, and the vestment warm. In vain his little children, peeping out into the mingling storm, demand their sire, with tears of artless innocence. Alas! nor wife nor children more shall he behold, nor friends, nor sacred home. On every nerve the deadly winter seizes, shuts up sense, and o'er his inmost vitals, creeping cold, lays him along the snows, a stiffened corse, stretched out and bleaching in the northern blast. Ah, little think the gay licentious proud, whom pleasure, power, and affluence surround. They who their thoughtless hours in giddy mirth and wanton, often cruel, riot waste. Ah, little think they, while they dance along, how many feel this very moment death and all the sad variety of pain. How many sink in the devouring flood, or more devouring flame. How many bleed by shameful variance betwixt man and man. How many pine in want and dungeon glooms, shut from the common air and common use of their own limbs. How many drink the cup of baleful grief, or eat the bitter bread of misery. Sore pierced by wintry winds, how many shrink into the sordid hut of cheerless poverty. How many shake with all the fiercer tortures of the mind, unbounded passion, madness, guilt, remorse, whence tumbled headlong from the height of life, they furnish matter for the tragic muse. Even in the vale where wisdom loves to dwell, with friendship, peace, and contemplation joined, how many racked with honest droop and deep retired distress. How many stand around the deathbed of their dearest friends, and point the parting anguish. Thought fond man of these, and all the thousand nameless ills that one incessant struggle render life, one scene of toil, of suffering, and of fate. Vice in his high career would stand appalled, and heedless rambling impulse learn to think. The conscious heart of charity would warm, and her wide wish benevolence dilate. The social tear would rise, the social sigh, and into clear perfection, gradual bliss refining still the social passions work. And here can I forget the generous band, who, touched with human woe, redressive searched into the horrors of the gloomy jail, unpitied and unheard, where misery moans, where sickness pines, where thirst and hunger burn, and poor misfortune feels the lash of vice. While in the land of liberty, the land whose every street and public meeting glow with open freedom, little tyrants raged, snatched the lean morsel from the starving mouth, tore from cold wintry limbs the tattered weed, even robbed them of the last of comforts, sleep. The freeborn Briton to the dungeon chained, or, as the lust of cruelty prevailed, at pleasure marked him with inglorious stripes, and crushed out lives by secret barbarous ways that for their country would have toiled or bled. O great design! If executed well with patient care and wisdom-tempered zeal, ye sons of mercy, yet resume the search. Drag forth the legal monsters into light, wrench from their hands oppression's iron rod, and bid the cruel feel the pains they give. Much still untouched remains. In this rank age, much is the patriot's weeding hand required. The toils of law, what dark insidious men have cumbrous added to perplex the truth, and lengthen simple justice into trade. How glorious were the day that saw these broke, and every man within the reach of right. By wintry famine roused from all the tract of horrid mountains, where the shining Alps and wavy Apennine and Pyrenees branch out stupendous into distant lands, cruel as death and hungry as the grave, burning for blood, bony and gaunt and grim. Assembling wolves in raging troops descend, and pouring o'er the country bear along, keen as the north wind sweeps the glossy snow. All is their prize. They fasten on the steed, press him to the earth, and pierce his mighty heart. Nor can the bull his awful front defend, or shake the murdering savages away. Rapacious, at the mother's throat they fly, and tear the screaming infant from her breast. The godlike face of man avails him not. Even beauty, force divine, at whose bright glance The generous lion stands in softened gaze, Here bleeds a hapless undistinguished prey. But if apprized of the severe attack, The country be shut up, lured by the scent, On churchyards drear, inhuman to relate, The disappointed prowlers fall, and dig The shrouded body from the grave, o'er which, Mix'd with foul shades and frighted ghosts, they howl. Among those hilly regions, where embrac'd In peaceful vales the happy Grisons dwell, Oft rushing from the loaded cliffs, mountains of snow Their gathering terrors roll. From steep to steep, loud thundering, down they come, A wintry waste in dire commotion all. And herds and flocks and travellers and swains. And sometimes whole brigades of marching troops. Or hamlets sleeping in the dead of night. Are deep beneath the smothering ruin whelm'd. End of The Seasons, Book 4, Winter, Part 1. This is a LibriVox recording. This recording is in the public domain.